being like the people you were serving. And excuse me for my cough. When you become a dad, you got to do things that your kids tell you to do, even though you don't want to do it. So they convinced me to go and get a dog, and I think I'm allergic to the dogs. And they convinced me that they was going to help me take care of the dog, but if you're a dad, you know what happens, right? Who be walking the dog and picking up the poop? Wife won't even pick up the poop. So, you know, that's just another story in itself. But that ties into the warrior's mindset. 28 years ago, I wouldn't even be doing all that. I would never be like waking up in the morning, walking the dog, waking up in the morning. I think this morning, you know, even though I said let me make adjustments, I realized I could have went to my school, we could have did a class, but I realized my wife got all this stuff going on, so I need to be there on hand so she can just feel relaxed. Even though she don't need me, as a warrior, I got to make sure she feels safe and she feels comfortable. And because I love kids, I love my kids so much, I could travel and I do business, and anybody that do business with me to this day, they're like, you know, Bam got his kids. I'm like, hey, if you having a meeting with me, I'm bringing my kids with me. Ain't gonna be no way, ain't no other way around it. So, and you'll see that today when you see my 30-year-old son, when he first started, you know, when I, you know, went through all that stuff, turned my life around, thank to God, you know, the challenge that I had when I had this vision to do what I'm doing right now. When I was homeless, I used to walk around with a little portfolio, and I knew I was gonna make it to Hollywood. That was always my dream. But even when I was waking up in the shelter while everybody else was going off to do things, I would go somewhere and I would practice martial arts. But still at the same time, I was playing on the other side of the fence because I was still connected to the streets. So I would go right back. And when I said I wasn't going to get high, I would go back and get high. And then, of course, at the end of being high, you had to go and meet the shelter bus in time to do what? To get to the shelter. You know, but I learned through all the sermons that the preachers was giving, doing when I was in the shelter. I was listening to what they were saying. Last time around when I ended up getting in Patuxent, locked up for 23, I think it was, I had to go through DOC in order to get to Patuxent. And I never had that experience where you was locked down 23 hours and let out for 1 hour. And I never had that experience when you had to change here and you had to change there and you walk like that. So when people was like, man, don't this feel like you was like a slave? You say you never seen slavery? There's slavery right here. Look at how you walking. And I thought about all those things, man, and when they ended up like giving me a pre-release center, they didn't have an opening, so they sent me to Patuxent. And if anybody know about the Patuxent Institute,
that's the crazy house.
That's the crazy house. That's where people doing life plus 50, whatever. When I was locked up in Patuxent, a lot of people that I did bad things to when I was selling drugs were in Patuxent. And a lot of people that knew that I was a martial artist knew, and they were in Patuxent. But at the same time, I knew that the only way, because the first night I was there, I was about ready to hang myself. Because that just wasn't me. And I realized that I had messed up so much. And I prayed to God, and I still got the paper, my students to tell you. It was in 1989. I said, God, if you give me a chance on this day, I swear to you, I will never abandon you ever again. After making that commitment, I woke up and I began to do 1,000 kicks, 1,000 push-ups, 1,000 sit-ups every day, and I would run the yard. If we went outside for 2 hours, I would run the yard for 2 hours. I would go to the library and I read every book in the library. I used people like Malcolm X as my role models. When people was in the day room doing things that was like social, I never did any of that. I did anything that dealt with me coming close to God. Anything that was talking about God, I was there. It was Islam, I don't know what it was. I don't care if it was talking about something that wasn't me and wasn't you and it was about God, I was there. And what's so beautiful, that don't happen in jail. You can't get Muslims to work with Christians and all this, but it was happening in jail. And the other thing, you can't practice martial arts in jail. But they let me practice martial arts in jail. And I began to spar. I used to spar on the yard with guys that was boxers. That ain't supposed to happen. But it happened in jail. It became so powerful from what God was doing for me. I remember I realized that I didn't want to have idle time because I don't want to hang in the day room. I don't want to watch TV. So I got a job in the kitchen. And I remember working in the kitchen. There was a lot of times when the light was coming on, I remember I had a guard who he was looking at me, kind of like that. And I would look back at him and hello. And he said, why are you looking at me like that? I said, I'm just looking at you. He said, you on lockup. Don't ever look at me like that. What I realized was that the shine was happening. And there was another guard that was back there with me that had got locked up for murder. but he had turned his life around and got his record expunged, and now he came back to the jail so he can help guys like me not to repeat the cycle. And he said, no, he's just in darkness. It don't matter what he got on, he in darkness. There was times I was in the kitchen and because little old me, I'm serving food, guys would come in and cuss and say, yo, you better give me more motherfucking potatoes and all that. And I was like, yo, who you fucking talking to? And the guy say, stop. Stop. Where are we trying to go? I'm trying to go home and take care of my kids. They trying to stay here, don't know where they want to go. So you know what he told me? Are you going to be man enough to go out there and walk out in that room, in that cafeteria, and go and make amends to that man? And I did. He said, because that's why you here. And think about that. You had to walk through a cafeteria to another man who dished you in front of all these other men and say, look, man, I'm sorry. All I want to do is go home. I don't want no trouble. And you probably turned your back and walked away. He called you all the names. But you know the impact, that when you know that you made the impact, when you walked by him in the yard, you're like, what? What's up? You knew that now y'all had a mutual respect where you would never cross that line again. But if you ain't sure about the commitment that you're making to yourself, none of that can happen. Amen. And but that commitment starts with a commitment to God. They say who we are is our gift. Who we are is God's gift to us, and what we do with that gift is our gift back to God. I realized that. It took me to go through all that and realize that. You know, I remember another incident when we were doing a count in jail, because that's where, I mean, I would rather die before I go back to jail today. But I know that going through jail allowed me to become the man that I am today. And I would not, and it was the greatest thing that ever happened. And I remember one time a guy never spoke to me a day in his life. I'm walking out for count, and he came up to me and said, hey bro, take this book. This is a book you'll like. You know what the hell the book was? The book was called Secrets. At the end of reading the whole book, it was saying there were no secrets. Until we can learn to love and be in the presence of other people without saying stuff, but just really feeling it, you don't really love someone. How many times you're around someone you gotta say I love, but can you feel you love them? Can you really feel it? When we touch one another and we come together, we feel love, we feel that connection. A lot of people can't do that. And a lot of times we can't do that because we're not okay with ourselves. You know, so for me, you know, it's all those situations that make what you're gonna see today possible. If I can come from homelessness, I came and I started this business with $20. When I came home from jail, I knew I did not want to go back and get high. People see me today, they cannot believe that I am the person I used to be when I was getting high. The only thing I never did was put a needle in my arm. But everything else I did. People can't believe it. So, because I believed and I knew that my mission for God was to go back first and get my son, and you'll see him today. He's one of the greatest martial artists on the planet. Still trying to get him to focus a little bit, but I done got him to a point where he's 30 years old. Now that is a must, and we still connected. We father and son. You'll see it when you come here. Those other two little ones right there, they're my two little sons too. And that's my wife right there. And when you see all these people that coming in here, these are all people that know all what I'm telling you. When you see the cross-racial barriers of what you're going to see, this guy is one of the most intelligent African-American men, professor on the planet. He sit there and he's quiet. He is one of the smartest men on the planet. He's the man that you don't want to see any time in your life. Because when you see him, you're gone. Right, Mr. Green?
Yes, sir.
He tells the people why you died and how you died after he cut that body up and go inside of you. How do a guy like me end up with a guy that smart? Think about that. You're going to see policemen coming here. I got locked up for beating up policemen. How do I get some of the highest ranking policemen to bring their kids to me? How? How does that happen? I still can't tell you. When you see, even with seeing what happened, you got people coming from New York. You got people coming from Jersey. We got people from China sending stuff over here for a guy that came from Lafayette Projects. The other thing that's so powerful, the same community center that I had a chance to grow up in, and I broke in, and I robbed, the same man that was there when I did all that gonna be here today. You know why? Because when I got my life together, I went back to build up my community, the same community that I destroyed. For 28 years, I've been always going back to get back to those kids. The kids of the guys that I did bad with, I'm connected to help them, and you'll get a chance to meet that guy coming here today. What you're going to see here, man, is truly remarkable. And if you are a man that truly understands, to me, I care nothing about really the adults. I care about the kids. That's what I care about. I care about the kids. I don't care about nothing else but the kids. And you're going to witness that when you see all those people come in. And I think the thing about it too, in order to move forward in anything that we do, I just believe it, is that you can't play with this. Because to me, for me to go back is for me to die. And for me to go back to jail, I would rather die. And for me to repeat anything that I come from, I would rather die. I can't pick up another drug or drink because those people that come in here never, to this day, they still can't believe that I was that way. And if I ever go back, if I allow any type of anger, if I take anything for granted, everything that I had right there, I tell people, every car, every home, every business be gone. Because I love getting high. And when I get high, I'm going to get high. I'm the guy that snorted everything that was on the table. I just wanted to get high. I wanted everything. I just wanted to die. I don't care if it was a stack. If we was bagging up something, it was a stack or whatever, I snorted all. You see Scarface? That's it. But you know what? If I do that, then all that be gone. I can't do that because I never want to live that way again. And I realize that there's a couple of people that count on me. That man holding that camera right now, he came here at 6 o'clock. He been with me how many years, Mr. Green?
22, sir.
Think about that. 20. How old are you, Mr. Green?
Just turned 67, sir.
Why is a 67-year-old man around a man like me for that amount of time? I'm blessed because he showed me how to raise even though I teach him martial arts, he showed me how to raise my kids. He showed me how to be a man without even realizing he was showing me that. Every person you walk in here, Mr. Capers, the women, when you see, I just cannot believe that this has happened. But it's only by the grace of God that I realize that it's not about me, it's about him. And right there where you at right now, I think, first of all, to me, it always starts with physical. I wake up, even today, I know I had to be, I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, okay? 3 o'clock in the morning is when I began my day. Sometimes he'd be sending his messages around 5 o'clock. He'd be slipping sometimes, but he'd be sending them.
3 today.
Yeah.
It's 3 today.
He'd be sending them. Sometimes I'd be thinking you'd be rolling over because you'd be sending me 2 sometimes. I'm like, hold on, man, what's going on here? You sent me 2 of the same messages. This Mr. Capers right here, guys.
Hey, how you doing, bro?
You need Mr. Green?
Yes.
Go ahead.
You keep it going.
He's he's going up for his black belt. He's also a dad in his school, and his kids, his son got a black belt. Okay. But yeah, so to me, it all starts with physical, because that's what allowed me to get away from the reality of what was going on. And I believe any man that doesn't take care of his body, how can you take care of your family? Because it starts with, you can have mind, you can have spirit, but a lot of people don't have physical. And there's no excuse. This guy right now, if they had a pull-up bar, I swear to God, if I told him to get up on a pull-up bar and do some pull-ups, he could probably knock out as many pull-ups as you want. He might say 69, and he might say, I don't know why I do this. If you see him fight, and he call himself a nerd, and if you see him fit, he'll come to the school. Every time he comes to school, he takes almost 4 hours of class. He takes the class. It ain't like he watches. If we say 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 burpees, he does all of that. So even when we do a little physical today, I'm not going to give you 45 minutes. You're going to see some stuff today. You're going to be like, oh my God, if he did that to us, they'd be calling the paramedics. I ain't going to do that to you. All right?
Ready for it.
But anybody that knows me, I believe in overkill. If I do a workout from 6 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock in the afternoon, do I take a water break, Mr. Green?
No, sir.
Do I eat, Mr. Green?
No, sir.
Do I keep going sometimes without taking a break, Mr. Green?
Yes, sir.
You know why? Because at one time I killed myself, so today I'm going to heal myself. There is nothing that I can do to me as long as I keep God in front of me that's going to kill me. Because God ain't about killing you, God is about healing you.
Amen.
So if I was about all that when I was running foul, you could put me on, when I go to the gym, the treadmill goes to 16. Guess what I put the treadmill to? 16. Because you know what? I put my finger up and there's only one God. And I want to remember that. I want to know by the grace of God, from all what I put in my body, he's allowing me to run on this treadmill at 16. And if I can run on this treadmill at 16 and not allow my heart to be bust, man, I'm just giving so much praise. People say, why you work out? I work out for God, man. I ain't even about the physical. I'm about the spiritual. I remember where I used to be. I remember when I was right there where some of you guys are at right now. I remember it, man. And I don't ever want to be that way again. And most importantly, I don't want none of my kids or any kid that come in here to ever be like me. I don't ever want any of them to repeat that cycle. So therefore, I got to be a living example of what I talk about. That's why I get up at 3 o'clock. You go and you watch and I talk about, tell everybody I read so much. One of the greatest things I think one of the things I do, and my wife get mad, I can spend like $200 in Barnes and Nobles. I'll come out with like a stack of books, and I'll be reading all of them. Because one of the greatest things that I can do is that I can educate myself. And education allows me to become a better person. Because I still, even that I'm here, I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't know. I don't really know how to be a dad. I'm doing my very best. As long as I don't think I know and I don't take credit for it. I think when my son, this week, my 8-year-old, he became like principal of the day. So he was the principal in the school. He was the principal of the day. My wife was like, look at him. The teachers and them were sending them emails saying, well, can we get a raise? If you'd have seen what he was sending them back, it was mind-boggling. I'm like, oh my God. Bruh, I'm talking my 8-year-old son, the principal of the day. Look at me. I go to the school and pick up my son. Don't miss one day. Never late. I go to school, pick up my son, and the real principal say, do you realize how great your son was? So can you imagine the seed that's being planted in his head? But most importantly, can you imagine the seed? Because they know what I'm doing here. So I know it might be selfish. I ain't just doing this for you. I'm doing this for all those people right there and my son. Because I know my wife saying, well, he's over there doing the Warriors mindset, talking to the men that was just like him when he was homeless and he didn't do the right things. Can you imagine that? So my kid can walk and say, yeah, my dad was homeless one time, but look at my dad now. My dad was homeless. So all those things that people say we shouldn't talk to our kids about, there's a way and means for them to be able to learn about it and be about it and see what's going on. And I think this, not just for you, but for me, it allows us to be able to give everybody, even half of those people that might not be where you at right now, I believe that it makes them realize that we real about what I'm teaching them, and because any of us can be there. And when you get out of there, we can go back. I can make one decision a day, and